Hello there, students! Today we're going to talk about very complex concepts. And I'm going to be talking like this.
If you don't want to sound like this in your online sessions, then take a listen and make sure that your students can hear you loud and clear. So if you never wanted to sound like a robot, then keep watching this video. Hello, my name is Gerd Christhandel. I'm an online educator and learning technologist at the University of Greenwich, London, UK. I share tips and tutorials on how to build your digital online presence for your online and hybrid teaching needs. If you want to stay in the loop, hit that subscribe button below and turn on the notification bell to avoid missing out on new videos released on this channel. Cheers! In my last video, we talked about setting up the webcam. The webcam is a very important source, and it makes you visible to your students. It expresses your online presence. You not only want to look good on screen, you also want to sound crisp and clear and understandable. In some instances, you could even claim that a bad webcam is forgivable. You could switch it off, and you could still teach to your students with your voice. But if you're lacking proper audio, if your students can't hear what you're saying, if it's crackling, hissing, or if it's just not clear enough, well, then it's problematic. How would you get this across to your student, whatever you want to achieve, whatever you want to teach? So therefore, audio is crucial. Today, I'm going to focus on the basic audio with you, because audio can get quite complex and complicated. So we're focusing on microphone setup, and we're going to apply a filter to the microphone to enable it to sound as crisp and clear to your students as possible. This will be particularly important when you do recordings, where you record directly in OBS. When you're doing streaming to MS Teams or Zoom, Teams and Zoom might still have an impact on your audio, but on the OBS side, you can do a couple things that make your audio as crisp and clear as possible. And at the end, we're also going to do desktop audio. Desktop audio is anything that comes from your computer that you want your students to hear. So for instance, you want to play a YouTube video, you also want the students to hear the YouTube video. Maybe you want to play some background music. You want to make sure that not only you can enjoy that, but also your students can enjoy that. So therefore, we want to include desktop audio as well. For advanced audio topics, I want to refer to the upcoming advanced video series over the course of the next couple of months. What am I talking about when I mean advanced? So for instance, what if you want to play music to your students via Teams and via Zoom? That's actually not that straightforward as you might think it is. You can just play some music on your desktop and think, oh, that's what the student's hearing. No, because it's desktop audio. It has a different outlet. It comes through your speakers or your headphones. So therefore, we need to have control of the audio tracks on our computer. And that takes us into territory that is way more complex and requires much more thought of what kind of audio tracks, what audio streams you actually want to control in full. So therefore, in this video, we're focusing on the basic audio stuff, so just to get you going. We actually need to start, again, thinking beyond OBS. Just like when we talked about the webcam, we needed to start talking about lighting at first, to light you up properly, so you're properly visible to your students. The best webcam can fail, we said that earlier. But what about audio? I would pose the same to you now. The best microphone is useless if you are not looking at your surroundings. Background noise can cause a lot of issues that mics have to deal with, and the mics might not be able to deal with a lot of background noise. Just think back to last year. You might have not had the luxury of a separate room like I have here to do your online teaching. You might have had your online classes taught from a laptop on your kitchen desk or your living room desk or your bed because you didn't have the space for it. So in that case, you had a lot of background noise most likely. Maybe other people in the house, especially during the lockdown. You may have had kids running around, the dog, the cat, the husband, distractions in the background that might just be too noisy. What if there's a construction site down the road? You can't change that. Or a big truck is passing your house. Or just any kind of noise distraction might throw your microphone off. So there's a couple of tips that you could try to alleviate background noise, natural background noise, a little bit. Of course, it all depends on your particular setup. You could start with closing windows and curtains. Not just the window, but also the curtains, because curtains can swallow a lot of noise from the outside. You might also want to check for things in the room that make noise, even noise that you yourself are not really aware of anymore. An example is a fan, especially the fan of a computer. You're sitting in front of a computer and you get used of the fan noise, but it's there and it can be quite audible in a microphone. Other things, depending on where you sit, a washing machine, a tumble dryer, a microwave oven. These kind of things also make noise, and this can all be heard. So things to consider when you're using an external microphone, if you're not using an inbuilt microphone, is where to place it. Piece of advice, don't place that microphone close to the computer fan. Place it away from the computer fan, so at least the computer fan noise is drowned out. Professor Chris Headland from the University of Lincoln, in fact, is an expert in all things audio. He suggests to actually close everything on the computer that you don't need during your recordings. So for instance, do you need Outlook open? Do you need Spotify open if you have that? So close everything that you really don't need during a session, because it puts more strain on the computer and therefore the fan might need to be kicked off more in order to cool the computer down. If you can, check various places in your house that you could potentially stream from. Of course, that has an outlet and proper lighting as well. Bare walls produce a lot of echo that is reflected back to your microphone, so it's picked up by it and it will feature on your recording. Rooms with bookshelves and similar can be very useful. To have such a room in your home, maybe give it a go there. See how the audio sounds like from there. At least for your audio recordings, if you're doing voiceovers of, let's say, slide content or other content, you might consider recording that in those rooms or locations where the sound is swallowed by the walls. Next, we're talking about the microphone itself. My hearty advice is consider investing in an external microphone. External mics are generally better. A lot, if not most, have possibly used the inbuilt microphone in a laptop. But you see, the quality of those microphones is not very high. You might think it's high until you actually hear audio picked up by a proper external microphone. And it's unsurprising that that's the case, because if you look at the laptop, the lid is very thin, and this is typically where the microphone sits, or it sits somewhere else on the bottom, but there's not a lot of space for a microphone. You might have used a headset microphone, but again, if you look at a headset and the microphone that's attached to it, that is very small. It cannot compete with a proper external microphone. Headset mics produce decent audio nowadays, and the more you're willing to invest in a good headset, the better the microphone is most likely to be. Microphones and types of microphones are a scientific discipline in themselves. In this video, we're not going to talk about the types of microphone that you can get. So therefore, I would like to refer that to a real expert. As I mentioned earlier, Chris Headland is a real expert in all things audio and microphones, and he has actually produced a blog post on microphone testing where he discusses different types of microphones, starting from the inbuilt one to the lapel to the headset to the external USB microphones, all the way up to very expensive but of course high quality XLR microphones. I leave a link in the description below. Now it's time to actually set up the audio in OBS. We start with the microphone, and we just switch over to OBS to do so. And here we are. So you might remember that I said in a previous video that we are not gonna set the audio globally. I explained at that point what that means. You would set basically the audio devices in your settings, in your audio settings. But I said we want to actually make this right from the get-go. We want to provide full control. We want to have full control over the audio in every scene because these things might differ. Also, if you treat audio on a per scene basis instead of globally, you can apply filters to your audio, to specific audio, that will help make your voice sound different, better, hopefully. We will talk about and actually apply a couple of suggested filters a little bit later in this video. What we are going to do, if you just want to use the same audio base setup in all your scenes, we're going to create that audio as a nested scene. In my previous video, when we set up the webcam, we talked about nested scene. You're basically creating a scene with only specific source or sources in our case today, and then you can include that scene in other scenes as a source. So we're gonna go to the audio settings right now in OBS. You can open your audio settings by either clicking on the button settings, that is from your perspective right behind me just now, so in the bottom right of OBS, or you can also go up here to File, Settings, and it opens the settings. Let's go over to audio and have a look. And you might have a sample rate here of 48 kilohertz. It is recommended and is the most compatible sample rate to use 44.1. It might be better to set. It says here the program must be restarted for these settings to take effect. I have restarted OBS as OBS suggested. You can see that it's set on 44.1 kilohertz. Again, that is the most compatible sample rate that produces the best results. The channel should be on stereo, so if it says anything other than stereo in your case, please do change it to stereo. And that's basically what we're going to do in OBS. If you have not followed my previous videos, especially the initial setup of OBS, which was the second video in this series, you might still see the default devices here under desktop audio and under mic auxiliary audio. This might be set to default. If they are set to default, please make sure that all of this is disabled. And we're gonna click OK. So these are the settings that we choose to select in the audio setting. So we're going to add a nested scene now with our audio included. So let's go ahead and go to the scenes section. We're gonna click on add. And remember that in this series, I suggest that you use some kind of system that you can identify your sources pretty quickly. So in this case, a nested scene with point brackets and NS for nested scene. And we call this blue microphone. Why blue microphone? Well, that microphone is blue in my case, and it helps me identify that microphone, because you might have more than one microphone. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna add a microphone. We click in the sources section, we click on add, and this is an audio input capture. This is my newer NW800 microphone. So now I need to select my microphone in there. So this is set at default. Default is basically the default as defined in the system. You set it actually to your microphone. So in this case, I pick, because I have several devices here that can pick up audio, I just select my USB microphone and I click OK. And you might have noticed the moment I have selected this, down here in the audio mixer gets the audio added. So you can see how your volume levels are looking like. So your voice should not peak at a normal talking volume that you have, so not screaming, but that a normal talking volume should not go above that threshold here, because then it's over peaking. You might have so much background noise though that it is over peaking. But we can do a couple of things here. Namely, we can apply so-called filters. Yeah? If you don't want to apply any filters, that's basically it. That's your microphone setup. End of. But if you want to have more control of this, we're going to have to work with filters. If you have a very noisy environment, there's a very good filter that you can use, and you might remember from the last video how to set filters. You right click on the microphone in this case, that's the source, and then you click on filters. So in the last video, those filters were graphic filters for the webcam. In this case, these are audio filters. And the one that I would suggest, but only if you have a very noisy environment, is the noise gate. So what happens if you use the noise gate? The noise gate allows you to eliminate a lot of the background noise and just picking up your voice. But please only use this if you have a very loud surroundings that you can do pretty much nothing about. Then the noise gate makes sense, so your audience can at least hear you and not everything around you. So the recommendation is to have the closed threshold and the open threshold defined here. So when is your voice being let through between which two barriers? Now, the recommendation is that you adjust this here, the closed threshold, to 32 decibels. And the open threshold should be at 26. So in this case, I already have them at these values. These are the recommendations. If you have different values here when you open this, when you open the noise gate filter, then just go ahead and adapt them. What this does, it allows your voice through, yeah, but tries to filter out everything else that might be going on around you. So we could now click on close, and then this filter would be applied. I will eliminate that filter again because it is only recommended to use that noise gate filter again in very noisy environments. If you have a somewhat noisy environment, if it's not too bad, but you have some background noise, you would like to use a different filter. So you can do two things here. Either you just hide that filter and then it becomes inactive, or what I'm going to do, I'm just going to delete the filter, select the filter noise gate and click on the minus. Are you sure you wish to remove noise gate? Yes. Alright, so all filters are gone. So if you're in a somewhat noisy environment, it may be better to use noise suppression. You find noise suppression also here by clicking the plus sign and you click on suppression. You can select which of these settings you want to use, either low CPU usage, low quality, or good quality, more CPU usage. Which of the two you should be selecting really depends on whether you have a strong CPU or a low CPU, so how many RAM do you have. So I will pick the more CPU usage because then this is good noise suppression, and that's basically it in noise suppression. We're gonna add another filter, namely compressor. So what is a compressor? A compressor is supposed to make your voice sound more even, more smooth. Leave it at the default setting, like this. Leave the ratio, the threshold, attack, release, output gain, and sidechain ducking source as they are. Again, I don't want to flood you at this point with all these specifics, what they mean. You can play around with them. I would just, at this point, this basic level, add the filter, leave these settings, but the compressor then is on, and it should make your voice sound more even and smooth. We add one more filter, namely, we're gonna add the limiter. And for the limiter, we're gonna put a threshold of -3 up. Why is that? The limiter basically avoids that your voice is going over that peak I told you about earlier. So let's move this a little bit up here. So you shouldn't go beyond -3 here. To help your microphone stick to that threshold, you can put a limiter on that. So this is where the microphone stops, basically. And if we put this at -3, that's exactly the threshold that we want. This is the limit. We're going to add one more filter. Yeah, we just added the limiter in order to avoid over peaking. But your voice should really be hitting that area here. So you can see that in my case, I'm not quite in that area. What I want to do is I want to add a gain filter. And now I need to observe how far away am I from the -3. If I'm checking if I'm talking normally, I'm hitting the -25 decibels here, the dead threshold. So up to -3 means that I need to add a gain of 22 and then see what happens. So I'm just going to do that. I'm adding a gain of 22 and you see I'm starting to hit those highs here. But I'm kind of overshooting now. You see the entire bar turns red. So of course I don't want that. So I'm going to reduce that gain. Yeah, so it's really trial and error. So 16 I added, and you see that my voice is now really comfortably hitting that area up there. So really the point here is add the gain if you're not hitting the 3. If you are hitting that easily, you don't need to add a gain filter. But if just check again, if I'm deactivating the gain filter, you see that my voice with my microphone is not quite hitting that area up here. I'm quite far below. With gain all of a sudden, so I'm clicking the button and just observe the audio mixer, I'm now reaching these areas, so my voice will be sounding much better, clearer to the audience. You just really need to check how far away are you from that 3. Yeah, and together with the limiter, keeps your voice in a nice bandwidth there. So these are the 4 filters that I suggest you use: noise suppression, compressor, limiter, and gain. Record yourself with those filters on, see how that sounds like, yeah, and then go back and adjust those filters. There's no one-size-fits-all solution here. So you might sound much better with settings slightly different to the settings that I suggest you use here. But start with those and then see where you want to adjust, how you sound like, and so on. So this is now our microphone setup, and now we're going to set up quickly the desktop audio. That's really not difficult, just the desktop audio is not an audio input capture. I explained this in our profiles, scene sources, transitions video. No, this is an output capture because that is an output. Desktop audio is what is being outputted from the system to you, and you want that audio to be used somewhere else. So this is therefore an output audio capture. And in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to call this desktop audio. At this basic level, it's a one catch-all, so to speak, that captures everything coming from the desktop. I'm going to click OK. And then you need to know where is your desktop audio being emitted from. If I click on my list here, you see, again, I mentioned this before, I have a lot of those outputs here. So you might want to use the one that is basically your speakers here, for instance, for the main desktop audio. Click on speakers and click on OK. And you can already see here to the audio mixer, we have desktop audio now added. But of course, this is not moving because nothing's playing at the moment from the system. So let's play something from the desktop so you can see that this is actually the desktop audio that's moving. I want to play some music from Amazon Music, in fact, some non-copyrighted music, so I can use it in this video. Let's play something nice here. And you see, you're probably not hearing it because I had it suppressed a little bit, but you might hear some music in the background here. There you go. And you see the audio mixer desktop audio is moving. And of course, this works just as well with YouTube videos. So for recordings now, with audio-wise, you're pretty much set. You can also, of course, if the desktop audio doesn't sound too well, you can try to apply some of the filters on the desktop audio as well. They're very similar. We're not going to set any filters on desktop audio because that will work just nicely as it is. If you find the desktop audio too overbearing, too loud, you can always put a limiter on that, just as we did with the microphone. So, and that's also our nested scene audio setup. Now, if you want to use that audio in any kind of scene, you just do the very same as you did with the cameras. So this is a new set of scenes here, just for demonstration of the audio. So at the moment you can see that in this first scene there is no audio in there, but you know what to do by now. You're gonna click on add a source. It's a scene. It should have a different name. Blue microphone is not really good because we have desktop audio in there. Just rename that source. I was a bit trigger happy with that name earlier. And yes, I'm going to leave that in the video. So let's call this basic audio. So there you go. And that should have changed here as well. So it's the source, basic audio. That's definitely a better name than blue microphone. Yeah, and you see that the audio here is being added. And now we're going to go ahead to our overhead cam. We do the very same thing here. We're going to add this scene, nested scene, the basic audio to that here as well. And now you can see that we have the desktop audio and the microphone added. Now you might be wondering, okay, we have something here in the audio mixer. These are the two webcams that I have, and both of these webcams have microphones, and they can pick up audio. So that basically comes with the scene with the webcams. I have disabled them here. I clicked them on mute so they would not interfere with any recordings. So you might have webcams that have the same features, that have audio inbuilt, microphones inbuilt that you can use if you have them. Yeah, so they might be decent quality. But in this case, I don't want that. I have my microphone, I have my desktop audio, and these are the ones that I'm going to use. I'll just show you one more thing that I like to set in my settings here. If you right click on the audio mixer, just as I did, a little menu opens here. It says unhide all, vertical layout, or advanced audio properties. Click on vertical layout and you see this. And this is, I have to say, my personal preference, because you see more of them next to one another without needing to stretch the screen all that much. So this is vertical audio. If you don't like that, if you prefer it the other way around, then just right click here in the audio mixer, click on vertical layout, and you're back to the previous one. So this ultimately is personal preference. So, and that's it for today. We have set up our microphone, we've set up the desktop audio, we've applied a couple of filters to make our voice sound good. And again, my recommendation, play around with the filters, change settings and see how your voice changes, if it sounds better or worse, to learn what settings work best for your voice. For more advanced stuff, we need a separate, more advanced video. So this will not feature in our basic video series. But if you, for instance, want to get music and voice into Teams or Zoom for a live session, that gets more complicated. Now over to you. As usual, I have a question of the day prepared. I'm interested in what microphone have you been using mostly last year in your online teaching, recording and live? Have you upgraded last year already? Have you noticed that it's not quite cutting it, what you started out with? Or did you already have a great microphone that you stuck with and you're happy with? I'm interested in which microphone do you have now? Are you happy with it still? Please put all of these things in the comment below. If you have any questions about anything that I've covered in this video, as usual, leave me a comment and I will happily answer those as well. If you like this video, then please give it a thumbs up, give it a like, hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell, so you're not gonna miss out on any upcoming videos when they drop. Thanks for watching, and as always, please do stay hungry for new skills. Bye!